The Genius Club with Prairie Pine. Chapter 56. Sophia, Hart. Putting aside all other thoughts, there was one detail Alex could not accept no matter how hard he tried to wrap his head around it. Long hair paired with a thick beard. That single image alone made him feel a deep, instinctive repulsion. Could that safe really not belong to me? Alex rested his chin in his hand, his brows furrowed as he sank into thought. After so many attempts, he had exhausted every possible 8-digit password he could conjure up. All meaningful dates, the time from his dream, and other random combinations he'd brainstormed. He had tested them all. He even tried entering them in reverse order, in jumbled sequences. When it came to date-based possibilities, there was not a single one he had missed. Passwords were a curious thing. No one would set a combination they themselves could not remember, especially a purely numeric one. It always held some special meaning, a connection to something or someone important. If that safe really isn't mine, but belongs to another person named Alex, they'll never guess the password in my life. Alex opened his mouth and let out a deep, tired yawn. The consecutive late nights and overtime shifts had left him drained, a weariness that no amount of sleep could fix in just a day or two. Earlier, he had forced himself to sit up, clinging to the last of his energy to sort through his jumbled thoughts. But now that he had stopped, drowsiness crashed over him like a tidal wave, his eyelids growing heavier by the second, as if weighted down by lead. "I'll sleep first," he mumbled to himself, rubbing his eyes. "I'll slack off and think about it at work tomorrow." With that, he let his head fall back onto the pillow, succumbing to the exhaustion almost instantly. The next day, Alex dragged himself to work on time, the lingering tiredness still clinging to his bones. But the moment he stepped into MX Company, he was hit by a wave of festive energy, like walking into a New Year's celebration. After the sensational success of the Rhine launch event, the company's businesses had exploded in growth. Every employee had received a raise of varying levels, and the office was filled with laughter, chatter, and a general sense of relief and joy. No one had much work these days. Everyone's minds were focused on the victory banquet scheduled for Saturday night at Victoria Hall. It was the talk of the office, a much-anticipated reward for their hard work on the Rhine project. Victoria Hall was one of the most upscale banquet venues in East Sea City, and when they said one of, it was no exaggeration. It was widely regarded as one of the top 3 venues in the entire city, a place associated with luxury and prestige. Director Emma had spared no expense, booking the entire hall to host all members of the Rhine project. Her generosity was staggering, but it was well-deserved. After all, the pre-sales for Rhine's debut moisturizer alone had allowed MX Company to surpass its entire Q1 2023 target, months before New Year's even arrived. The performance was nothing short of ruthless, a testament to the project's success. And Alex, hailed as the father of Rhine Cat, had briefly become an online celebrity, his name linked to the adorable mascot that had captured everyone's hearts. But that fame faded as quickly as it had come. Next to the charming Rhine Cat, no one cared who Alex was, much like how no one remembered the designer of Hello Kitty. He was just a footnote to the project's success, and he was perfectly fine with that. Alex stepped into the elevator and pressed the button for the 20th floor. The logistics department had finished tidying up his new office, a promotion that had come with the Rhine project's success. When the elevator doors slid open, he was struck by how quiet the floor was, far quieter than the 17th floor he had been on before. This floor was mostly for the vice presidents, and only subordinates came up here to report work, which meant it was always calm and orderly. He walked down the hallway and pushed open the door to his new office, a smile spreading across his face as he took in the space. The office was spacious, with high-end furnishings and a thoughtful layout. There were new guest reception facilities, a water machine, a tea station, and several potted plants that added a touch of greenery to the room. It was a far cry from his old workspace, and he couldn't help but feel satisfied. In the corner, a small lounge area held a brand new bed, the plastic wrap still covering the premium mattress, emitting a faint smell that reminded him of formaldehyde. "Better air this out for a while," he muttered, walking over to open the lounge window wide before closing the door to keep the smell contained. He sank into his new leather executive chair, letting out a contented sigh. Nice. The soft leather back was infinitely more comfortable than his old ergonomic chair, so comfortable that he almost felt sleepy just leaning back. It was the perfect chair for slacking off during work. After taking a few minutes to familiarize himself with the new office and its amenities, Alex sat up straight, twirling a pen between his fingers as his thoughts drifted back to yesterday's dream. No. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was overcomplicating things, that maybe none of this was as serious as he thought. What if the safe really wasn't his? What if CC was just suffering from delusions of split personality, and all her memories were just figments of her imagination? If that was the case, then none of this had anything to do with him. He was just a nosy bystander who had stumbled into something he didn't understand. Logically, it made sense. But there was one clue that gnawed at him. Something he couldn't ignore, no matter how hard he tried. "I've definitely heard CC's voice somewhere before," he whispered to himself. "And she said she's heard my voice in her memory fragments too. Are both of these just coincidences?" He couldn't convince himself that they were. If only one of them had found the other's voice familiar, it would have been easy to brush off. But both of them felt that way. There had to be more to it. Some hidden connection he hadn't uncovered yet. At least CC had a lead. She knew what the middle-aged bearded man with the same voice as him looked like. But Alex? He had no memory of ever hearing CC's voice before. No idea when, where, or from whom he could have heard it. Where did I hear CC's voice before? He closed his eyes, picking up a pencil and twirling it between his fingers as he tried to recall. His mind wandered back to the last moment of his dream, the moment CC had turned around and smiled at him. He had always thought of her as a cold, ruthless female killer, someone who would never show any softness. But that smile had been different, sweet, genuine, her eyes curving into cute crescent moons, two faint dimples appearing at the corners of her mouth. It had unexpectedly fit his taste, a side of her he never thought he would see. The pencil in his hand stopped spinning. Almost without thinking, he held the tip up and began sketching on a blank A4 sheet of paper on his desk. Rustle, rustle. The sound of the pencil gliding across the paper filled the quiet office as he started to outline the face from his dream. First, he drew the facial contour, a clear, defined jawline and a small, delicate oval face. Then the strands of hair framing her ears, her long eyelashes, the curve of her smiling mouth, and her crescent-shaped eyes filled with warmth. He added the two faint dimples on her cheeks, half hidden by her smile, refining the details bit by bit. As he sketched, Alex couldn't help but marvel at how sharp his skills still were. Back in high school, he had applied as an art student, and his sketch scores had been among the best in the province. It had been a mix of talent and hard work. He had practiced day and night, even dreaming about sketching when he slept. Rustle, rustle. The sketch took shape quickly. When he finished, he leaned back to look at it. The girl on the paper had her hair neatly piled up on the back of her head, a small teardrop mole beside her crescent eyes, her delicate face lit up by a refreshing smile that was both lively and cute. It was so detailed, it was almost like a black and white photograph, even more three-dimensional. Bang! The office door was suddenly pushed open with a loud crash, jolting Alex out of his thoughts. Alex, take this victory banquet invitation to Professor Hughes, a familiar voice said, sharp, direct, and unmistakable. Alex looked up, startled, to find Director Emma standing in the doorway. Of course it was her. She was the only one in the company who would walk into someone's office without knocking first. Oh, right. Okay, he said, quickly standing up to take the red invitation from her hand. Director Emma's gaze drifted down to the sketch on his desk. She paused for a moment, then nodded in approval. This is really good, she said, her tone softening slightly. Thanks, Alex replied, feeling a little embarrassed under her gaze. It looks just like her, Director Emma added, pointing at the paper. Alex froze, his eyes widening in surprise. You know who I drew? He asked, taking a step back, as if he couldn't believe what he was hearing. Director Emma looked up at him, a hint of confusion in her eyes. Are you joking, Alex? Who in all of EC's business circles doesn't know who she is? She pointed at the smiling girl in the sketch, her voice matter-of-fact. You drew Derek Hart's daughter. She paused, then finished the sentence, and Alex felt his heart skip a beat. Sophia Hart, didn't you?